Hello and welcome to today's webinar about the future of identity management in the energy sector. As in many of our webinars, we start with a short introduction, what is changing, or some key facts about the energy sector. Currently, as many of you know, the power sources or the power energy production, energy generation changed in the last years or last decades. So there's not only big production sites or energy production sites, also smaller systems like solar systems on private houses or business buildings join the power sources here, which also leads that many houses are now able to produce their own or have their own power sources, where they send energy or power into the system itself or consume the power themselves. So there is a change in that aspect. Also in the aspect of consumer loyalty in the last years or in the last decade, a lot changed. So it's easier to switch from one energy supplier to another. In that aspect, also the transparency increased. So many people go to portals, check the prices, check the performance of certain suppliers, and then base their decision on these facts, which also leads to the fact in the past, people stayed with one energy supplier maybe their whole lifetime. Now they switch maybe 3-4 times during their lifetime, or maybe even more often depending on the price. There's also increase in requirements. So the service quality matters a lot, especially also digital services. So do I have the option to change maybe my address, maybe my name, maybe request additional information or book additional services via portals, platforms? That's especially also the comfort of people, what they want to gain out of the service quality or which they require or demand from their suppliers, also from energy suppliers in that aspect. There's also a lot of change in regard of the smart home or also smart office concepts. So I have smarter gogging systems, so I can measure the energy consumption, which of my devices need more energy, which need less. I can also control the windows. I can shut down the heating when I open a window. I can control lights, so I can really react smarter and utilize the energy smarter or more intelligent in that aspect. But I also need more energy because my smart home or my home gets more intelligent. I have more devices. I also need more energy in that aspect. In general, the energy consumption gets more flexible. So I can use my washing machine in the night, maybe because it's cheaper. I can, as mentioned, the smart home context, shut down the heating when the window is open. And I can react to certain special events in the energy consumption or energy production. The market competition also increased, so I don't have only the traditional energy suppliers in the market, I also have startups which are helping to reduce energy consumption in a smart home context. They are active in smarter cities, maybe they support with power production or energy production, solar systems or others. They advise how to reduce energy consumption with new devices, new heating systems, and others. So in that aspect, there are much more players in the market, especially in the energy sector. In that aspect, it becomes more and more important to create or generate new business models. So it's not only about the energy supply or production as key or as competitive advantage anymore. It's also about the service which I provide around the energy production or energy supply, and what business models relate to the energy supply. In that context, especially also e-mobility or others. Now let me shortly introduce myself. My name is Satyas. I'm Managing Director of the cidaas ID company. As Managing Director, I'm responsible for the overall product roadmap of our custom identity and access management cidaas. My background, I have a master in IT and global studies. And in parallel, I'm also working on my PhD in computer science. My key focus in my business activities is I want to develop digitized business models, especially in relation to identity management, so identity related or identity based business models. And obviously, that also relates to our product cidaas with the slogan everything revolves around just one thing, identity. Having a look at the company Vidas, we have 5 branch offices worldwide, around 120 employees, and we are focusing our projects, especially in the context of digitization, with many innovative technologies and products applying in our projects. Having a look at the agenda, what we want to follow today. In the beginning, we want to connect to the changes in the energy sector, so especially relating to the key facts, what we already mentioned in the beginning. Then we want to have a look at the challenges in that aspect, also especially relating to use cases which are out there in the energy sector itself. And finally, we want to relate it to the customer identity and access management. Having a look at in the beginning at the changes in the energy sector, so it's comparable to other sectors. So in the beginning, I had a personal contact, which relates to I stayed with energy supplier my whole lifetime, or only had a few, 1 or 2 changes or shifts because I maybe moved to another location. I had personal contact often. I was also in contact with the service person, maybe visiting once a year. So this changed over the years. So now it's a more digital experience. So I go to portals to compare prices, as mentioned in the beginning. I book based on some other factors than only the personal relation to the energy supplier. But still I have a personal contact, maybe a service person also visiting once a year or twice a year, or I use digital contacts via email or via other portals here. In the future, that will change much more because most of all, or maybe all of the interactions will happen on a digital way, depending what I prefer. And I will have many cross services which come into game. So as mentioned, as mentioned at the beginning, not only energy supply, but also cross services like consulting in the smart home or creating a smart home, solar systems on my rooftop, maybe e-mobility, so e-scooters, which are there, especially rising now, or cars which are not working with any gas anymore, but with energy in that aspect. So there's a lot of change going on there. Having a look at the challenges relating to the use cases in that aspect, as mentioned, smart home is quite an important use case, which focuses on reducing the energy consumption maybe, or utilizing the energy in a much better way. Another focus is the energy production. It's often already mentioned in the media already, or in the news. The energy production changes. So as mentioned in the beginning, or in the past, I had big energy production sites, coal or gas, whatever. Today, there's a lot of changing. I have, for example, solar systems, wind energy. So I have really different energy production possibilities, which are also more decentralized. So I do not only have big sites at one spot supplying or producing energy for a bigger area. I have many smaller production sites with different technologies, with different sources of energy to produce energy for a certain region. Finally, or in the next step, as mentioned already in the changes, there's a lot of new business models arising in regard to energy, in regard to e-mobility. We have, for example, the e-scooters, which are out there in most of the big cities in Europe, in the United States, and also in Asia. So in that aspect, also the need for energy and for a good energy supply network, as well as for digital services around of e-mobility and energy increased in the last years. E-services, it's the same. So I may need to have some consulting, how to build up, how to set up my smart home, how to reduce energy consumption best, or how to utilize energy best. So as mentioned, using the washing machine in the night, or some other systems what I have there in the night, shutting down the heating system when the windows are open. So really consulting or services around of energy consumption, energy production for private persons as well as business persons becomes more and more important, or becomes one service which in the energy sector is rising, especially in the past years, and which also can become one competitive advantage for energy suppliers in that aspect. Finally, also e-fuel stations relating to e-scooters again. We have the same for cars. So also there's a change in mobility. So I'm not using gas cars with fuel or gas anymore. Now there's also electric vehicles out there which need the proper energy network or energy supply network in cities, also in rural areas. And we as energy supply companies also need to consider that. We need to also provide proper services for that. So I maybe need to plan a trip with a EV, electronic vehicle or electric vehicle in front, to plan where do I do a stop to charge my car or my vehicle. In that aspect, there needs to be some services around that to support users of these vehicles in the future. Summarizing up the challenges in the customer identity and access management, or in regard to the customer identity and access management system. So as mentioned in the beginning, users demand much more customer experience. So they want digital services, they require them, they demand them, I need to offer them, and customers or users are used to the comfort they are getting offered in e-commerce, social networks, gaming apps, and others. So this customer experience, what they get delivered out of other sectors, they also demand in the energy sector now. So easy self-services, easy user self-services, booking of services online, all that. Also, as mentioned, the mobility changes. So I have e-bikes, I have e-scooters, I have electric vehicles. So there's a lot of change in the mobility sector happening here. I also have a change in regard to how people live. So they have smart homes. They are able to utilize the energy much more intelligent, much smarter. So as mentioned, using the washing machine in the night, shutting down the heating when the window is open. So in that aspect, the smart home measuring systems becoming much more important. We also see a change how energy is produced. So I'm not only producing in big sites, I'm producing in smaller and decentralized energy production sites, as mentioned, maybe solar systems on private households and others. And I have a shift from the offline world to the online world. So especially as mentioned, focusing on customer loyalty, I have in the past, maybe I didn't do a shift from an energy supplier. Now I'm shifting maybe based on the service quality, maybe based on the prices. So that aspect, the customer loyalty now have to be gained, not because I'm the only supplier or I'm the biggest supplier in a region. It has to be gained based on the service, what I'm delivering, or on the quality, what I'm delivering to my customers in that aspect. That's especially in regard to the digitization. One big aspect, what we mentioned here, is that especially business models are changing. So We are not only energy suppliers in that aspect anymore. So we have the energy supply as a basic factor, but there are many services what I need to deliver around to my customers, to my users. If it is B2C, so to private customers, or if it is in the B2B sector, to companies itself. One aspect which might be important in certain regions is especially the complete digitalized experience, for example, with identity proofs, what we had also in our financial sector webinar, that today I want to maybe close a contract directly or sign a contract directly online. So I have a complete online process, don't have any offline access, don't need to sign anything in the offline mode and send it via mail order, but I can do the complete process, switch from one to another supplier, booking any services completely online. There might be maybe an identity proof needed, which also can be handled today in the online world. Summing up, especially in regard to the customer identity and access management system, so it becomes to a real omnichannel experience where we have in the online world different digital platforms, different services in the sales channels in the online world. I've also the customer service, which needs to be active online via different channels that can be social networks, that can be chat portals, that can be a feedback portal. I'm really in contact with them, and I need to recognize the person or my customer in that. So especially in that aspect, identity management becomes really important. And it also moves to the offline world. So maybe I have any maintenance worker, any service assistant out there, which need to be in contact with my persons. And I have especially devices which are now integrated into, for example, a smart home. So I have smart measuring systems. I have smart home sensors there. So for the energy consumption, coming back to the example what I mentioned already, for the heating or the window. So all these sensors are out there. So I have really an identification of users in the online world. So that's the classical way. And I also have the IoT integration, IoT devices, which also need to be related to a customer or customer group in that aspect. Coming to the functions which are therefore needed based on a customer identity and access management system, as mentioned in the beginning or during the webinar, user comfort is a really important aspect in that sense. Users demand the comfort, the good customer experience, good user experience from the energy suppliers, what they also get from social networks, e-commerce companies in that aspect. We have the real-world identification, or what we also say is IoT, device management. So I really do not only have a user which has who has a smartphone, a tablet. They also have different devices. They have a refrigerator, a heating system, and many more. They in that aspect also measuring systems. So they have really a lot of devices in their smart home or in their smart office, which needs to be where identification or relation of this device to a user or to other resource like a building needs to be done. In that aspect, also important in regard to the user comfort and also considering the B2B and B2C use cases, I need to have a good group and identity management. So not only a classical identity management where I have one user, I also need to have group management. In the private sector, that can be a family living in a house, so I need to consider the family, not only one person. And in the context of a B2B use case, I have a complete company or a company group, so also hierarchy in the group itself, where I need to consider different persons in the context of a certain thing. So maybe father and mother in the context of a family, or owner of a business, manager of a company. In that aspect, the customer experience, especially relating to the user comfort, is quite important, especially also the marketing aspects. So as we consider new business models, for example, e-scooters, e-mobility use cases, I need to provide proper recommendations to the user. So your fuel or your power is low, the next e-fuel station is 2 kilometers away from you, follow this line. So especially in that aspect, I can do marketing for my own services in that aspect, but I also provide a good customer experience to the user. Especially in the European Union, content management, but also now in the United States, content management becomes more and more important, or should be already implemented. It's about GDPR, so following the legal regulations, but also providing transparency to the users. So I show the user what data I'm gathering from him, what I use the data for, and what benefits he gain from that. So if I show him more transparency, he's more willing to share the data. He's more willing or more happy about the service what I'm delivering, because he gets the feeling and trust into the company, into the energy supply in that aspect. And as mentioned, the identity proof, which might be in certain contexts important for private families or business companies. It can also be related to partners, maybe to do like an identity proof for a certain profession. So I recognize which profession this user has, and based on any certificate which is verified in a digital process by scanning or by doing a video of the certificate, or maybe in another aspect of the passport or ID card. That's especially also important if you consider e-mobility concepts, where I maybe rent also electric vehicles, e-scooters, whatever, and where I do like a driver license control directly in the app. So there are many use cases where where an identity proof can be really important. That's the end of our webinar today. I'm happy that you all joined the webinar. As always, in the end, we would like to do a short shout out. So what you should do tomorrow. First of all, you can register for our live demo of cidaas, our custom identity and access management system, which will be next week on the 4th of September. So we are happy if you join us there. You can register on cidaas.com/webinars. And we also want to ask you to do a jumpstart. So discuss with us and our partners what can be the next steps in regard to identity management for you. You're also free to sign up for our free plan. It's completely free, and the only limitation is the user amount. So have a look at cidaas, how it works, what benefits it can deliver to you. And I'm happy to receive also feedback for the webinar from you. And that should be it for today. Thank you very much for your attention, and hopefully see you next week in our live demo of cidaas. See you soon. Bye-bye.